when somebody's 70 years old and they want to look back, they want to make sure that they made the smart decisions along the way, the decisions they're proud of. And I'm hoping that that would be an inspiration in our story to other people. Is we didn't go the fastest, we weren't the firework, that zoomed up in the air and exploded and were super pretty and all that. But we're trying to make decisions that when we're an old couple, we look back on our life and we're very thankful that we made the decisions that we made, whether or not the culture around us agreed with them.
Hey, welcome everybody to the Side by Side Business Podcast. And we are really excited today. We have a couple on, and this is going to be a great interview. We have Kyle and Angela Bigelow. So welcome. Thanks for coming on with us today.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you very much for having us.
Yeah, I'm going to read your intro here, and then we'll get a chance to kind of personalize this a little bit more. But Kyle and Angela have been married for 16 years, 10 months, and 26 days. As of the recording.
Yeah. People probably see this when they've been married for 16 years, 11 months, and 10 days or something like that.
All right. They live in Indiana and homeschool their 6 children who range in age from 13 years down to 13 months. In 2017, they paid off their home, becoming completely debt-free. We got to talk about that.
Yeah.
In 2019, they began the journey of starting their own business with the goal of eventually bringing Kyle home full time. As a family, they love to garden, dream together, and build special family memories.
Oh, man. We love you guys. That is such a cool just intro to the story. But I have to ask the question, how did you go about paying off your house so quickly? I am. We're jumping into it.
Yeah. I think we always feel like the turtle. We feel like we are so slow to get anywhere. So maybe we paid it off on my 33rd birthday, and we were 33 and debt free. And it took 6 years, 11 months, and I felt like it just drug out so long. But the way that we were able to pay it off was first of all, thank you very much for having us on the podcast. We appreciate that. When we were engaged, we went through Dave Ramsey's class that our church hosted, and I had never heard of Dave Ramsey before. I thought he was probably a con artist because we went and saw him in town, and he had $1,000 cash, and he was giving it away to somebody. And in my mind, I thought, you probably borrowed that $1,000. And so we went through his class, and we got on a budget every single month, and gave it every dollar a name, told our money where to go. And it was a long 6 years, 11 months. And there's another really cool part to the story, if I could tell that as well.
Oh, please. Yeah. Please share it.
With permission, my parents saw that we were really trying to pay the house off, and we were actually making traction. And so they started getting diligent about paying their house off. They had never had a paid off house. And so they started making quicker progress than us, but they had a bigger debt limit, debt amount owed. And so they got really close, and we were getting really close. And I told them, I said, I think it'd be really, really neat to pay it off on my 33rd birthday. So in the morning, they went in Colorado to their bank, paid off their house. And then when I got home from work, we went to our bank and paid off our house. And that was just such a very, very special thing to us.
Yeah, it was a very unique opportunity because Dave Ramsey talks about how when you live on a budget, you can change your family tree. And I think most people think about changing your life and your children's lives. And it was so neat as we were making traction. Kyle's parents really became our biggest cheerleaders along the way and got on board and really kept the fire going under us to keep making progress, even when it seemed like slow progress. And so it was really special to be able to pay off our houses on the same day.
So we were able to change our family tree, hopefully down, but also up a little bit as well.
Yeah,
that is fantastic. So did you do the whole screaming I'm debt free thing? Did you get on Dave's radio program or?
We didn't. We had thought about doing that. And Kyle's mom is a little more of a private person. And so we called one another and we did our debt free scream with one another.
There you go. Oh, that's a great
Actually,
way to celebrate.
yeah, on the way to paying off the debt, we had the big numbers, big foam letters on our refrigerator, and we'd every time we'd make a payment, we would drop those numbers down, lower the numbers, and we eventually made a paper chain that went around our bedroom, and each loop represented $100, and so when we'd go to the bank and make our payment, we'd rip off the certain number of links, and it was a neat thing because at that point we had 3 kids, and our fourth one was about to be born, somewhere around there. And so it was really neat that we were able to kind of explain to our older kids, like what we were doing and why we were doing it. And that was very special.
Yeah.
Oh, that is really neat. I love that, and I know that story is going to inspire so many other people. And we have done Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University, and we've taken our oldest kids went through it kind of at the same time that we did because they were kind of at the stage that we knew they would get it, and that has been such an inspiring thing to do. And we've always been budgeters too, but I just love that. I love that you shared that part of your story. It's really neat. So tell us a little bit. Yeah, I don't think we. Oh yeah, we did mention that you homeschool as well. That seems to be kind of a common theme among many entrepreneurs as they choose to homeschool their children. So I would like for you, if you don't mind, share a little bit about what home life looks like right now.
It's busy.
Yes.
So Kyle still works a full-time job,
Okay.
and so he is gone first thing in the morning. So I usually get the kids up, we do our morning routine, eat breakfast, and then I try to do Bible time first thing in the morning. Just that's our priority, and I want to make sure that that happens every day, regardless of what amount of life happens that day. The kids have individualized studies, but also one of the beauties of homeschooling is allowing children to learn at their own level and at their own speed. So I actually have allowed some of my children to go a little bit slower and some of them to go a little bit faster, which has worked out beautifully because then I'm teaching, one lesson to a couple kids and then one lesson to a couple kids. And so that helps a little bit with grouping kids together. But also, I think just giving yourself a lot of grace and understanding that we are choosing to homeschool not to mimic what happens in the public school classroom, but to give our kids a quality education, but also an education that's going to serve them in life. And when I was in public school, I was an excellent student, but I didn't enjoy it. And I feel like a lot of the time that I spent in the classroom was wasted time. It was me in a study hall or learning information that I have not needed to recall in my entire adult life. And so I really appreciate this kind of business ownership mindset of we can get the kids involved in the business and they are learning skills that they will use for the rest of their days. And it's not just knowing which country borders which country on the other side of the world, which you can look that up if you need that information at some point in your life. But I think just building life skills, learning how to cook, learning how to do laundry, learning how to take care of younger siblings, learning how to solve sibling disputes, learning good work ethic. All of those are skills that are going to serve you every day for the rest of your life. And so seeing the value in those skills that you couldn't necessarily put on a report card, but that's a valuable education. So that's kind of life in a nutshell for us is we do try to do our book work and our, more regular studies, but also seeing that life is education too.
Yeah, definitely love that. just a little glimpse into your life. That's great. Sometimes I think for homeschool families, especially, it'd be great to have a film crew following you around because it's just sometimes it's chaos, sometimes it's very, very organized, but very intentional. It sounds like with what you're attempting to do there for sure. So, so Kyle, I'd like to see your perspective on that. So you're gone during the day, like, what kind of, you don't have to get into details, but like as far as your time away from home versus your time at home, and then trying to juggle, um, full-time job, running a business, and making sure you're there for your wife and kids. How do you handle all that?
I think it's tricky, and I am not perfect at it for sure. But so a couple years back, we really felt like God was directing us more towards home as far as me coming home full time. And again, we're the slow tortoise. And so I was able to convince my boss to let me go to 4 10-hour days versus the 54 hours that normal people in the shop work. And so I'm off on Fridays. And so I'm long gone by the time they get up Monday through Thursday. But on Fridays, it's more, I'm able to sit down and eat breakfast with them again on Saturday. And like, that's just kind of a weird thing because like I've never got to do that on Fridays before. I'm not that involved in the homeschooling part besides like, I think it's really important, to teach the kids real life skills and the whole mindset of like, you don't have to be employed at a job. And if you want to be, that's fine. But I think both of us came from the background of our parents, worked traditional jobs and were very loyal to their jobs. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm trying to teach our kids, like, you need to find ways that you can serve other people well, and then they'll want to bless you back in the form of Benjamin Franklin's or whatever for the work that you do for them. And I'm trying to just gear that into their mind of like the entrepreneurship mindset. And so a lot of times on Fridays, if there's business work to be done, we try to get them involved in the business and they get compensated. And we're not the parents that would just normally give our kids a allowance. I don't think that's for us a good way to go. And so I try to, teach them like your paycheck is directly related to the amount of end results. And you don't get that in the 9 to 5 job necessarily. I'm not trying to trade your time for money. I'm trying to trade the result for money. So I don't know if that answered the question or not.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of interesting because it kind of parallels to our story just a little bit in that I had a job where I was working 4 days a week and I had Friday off, and that's whenever we started our entrepreneurial journey as well. And Sue was very busy homeschooling, and I was not very involved in the homeschooling at that stage. I did get quite a bit more involved as the kids got older and after I came home full time. So yeah, that's really neat that you were able to kind of coordinate your day job schedule. Not everybody can do that, but that's a great opportunity that you've been able to take advantage of there. So, so do you have the next question?
Oh, yeah. I was wanting to know a little bit about what drove you towards entrepreneurship. You talked about that you've got a good, steady job. You said you'd kind of like to show your kids some other things, but was that the original thing or was there something else?
So after our second son was born, they needed their daddy. And there were many days where Kyle was gone before the sun was up and he got home when the sun was already down. And it just really started tugging at our hearts. And I really do believe it was God's call on our hearts that we need to figure out a way to get daddy home for the sake of these boys. And then as the other children came along, our children need to know their dad, not just as the one who brings home the paycheck, but as his character and who he is and all that he can invest in their lives. So that was kind of an early tug on our hearts. But I do not have a very big risk tolerance. And so starting our own business was not something I was comfortable with at all. And through kind of a series of steps, I felt like God just ordered our steps and brought the right people into our life at the right time. And so in 2019, we were able to start our own home business with e-commerce. So we sell mostly on Amazon, but also on a few other platforms. And we were able to start with a very small investment and then to just allow the business to grow slowly over time and just patience and diligence and being careful. It's been a slow journey, but it's been a good journey. And I'm thankful for all of the lessons that we've learned along the way when you have much less invested versus, if you would go out and get a loan, a business loan or whatever, you could make some pretty costly mistakes. And so I'm thankful that we've been able to make mistakes and learn lessons at an earlier stage of our business. And at this point, feeling more comfortable that when Kyle comes home, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
I would just
So, go ahead, Kyle.
I would just echo in there a little bit about, I think the focusing on the family is what really drew us to entrepreneurship. And it's through some steps of Rabbi Lapin being the, guest speaker at a certain conference, and that's what really pointed us into this community, which we really love. But I think the focus on the, I don't want to lose my children's heart, and I know it's far too easy to do that. And the easy thing would be for me to put my nose to the grind and just muscle out another 20, 30 years in the real world, quote unquote. And then I wake up and I'm ready to retire, and maybe I'm still broke at that point, and I've lost the hearts of my family. And I see other men do that, and it breaks my heart. And I'm like, my kids are young, and now's the time that I need to be pushing into this. I can always go back and get another job or another 9 to 5 if I need to, but and I think we're getting closer and closer, and it's in. We see the light at the end of the tunnel now. Actually, something we've not told you guys, but hopefully by the year's end, they actually just hired my replacement. So starting at the end of, or the beginning of next month, my replacement hopefully is coming on. And so that's kind of a foot on my back saying, now's the time, buddy.
Got to make this happen.
Oh,
Yeah,
that is
but-
such good news. I'm so excited to hear that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. But I mean, Kyle is as valuable as you might be to your employer. You are replaceable at a job, but you are not replaceable as a dad. And so that's definitely been our priority and our focus with this business that we have.
That is great. And what has driven you to keep those priorities? Because that is right in line with the way that we think as well. And I would love to hear what drove you to make that your priority.
I think it was just God pulling at our hearts that, like Kyle said, you don't want to wake up when you're 70 years old and think, what happened to those days where I had young children and where I had the opportunity to shape their lives. We wanted to be intentional, and it is easy to just get through today and then just get through tomorrow. But we don't want to have regrets when we're older. And so sometimes that means stepping out of your comfort zone and doing something that you're not sure you're quite ready to do, but you feel God directing you that way.
Yeah, that is so neat. And so earlier, Angela, you said something about not being a risk taker. All right. So normally opposites attract. So Kyle, does that mean you are more of a risk taker? Are you more the entrepreneur in the family?
I'm the wild child. I wouldn't call me the risk taker necessarily, but maybe in our relationship. I don't know. I guess like with my job, I listen to a lot of content, and I consume a lot of content, including the Side by Side podcast. I do listen to that. most episodes.
Good deal.
But I think like I stew on these ideas and I'm like, oh, I gotta go make progress, you know. But I wouldn't call myself the entrepreneur per se, compared to a lot of entrepreneurs. But I think a theme of our life has been like doing things together, making decisions together. Uh, as you guys mentioned, a lot of couples can't stand to work with their spouse or don't want to work with their spouse, and we're kind of the opposite of like we want to work together, and we worked together before we ever got married, and that's partly what drew us together. That's one theme of our life, and another theme of our life I feel like is kind of going against the grain, hopefully not in a bad way. Um, but a lot of what we do, it just ends up being like not what other people would do.
I like to say that we will think critically about things, and some things that people just accept as normal, we're willing to take a step back and to say, but wait, is that what we want for our future? Is that what we want for our family? And so I think that's kind of pushed us to make some decisions that might be uncomfortable. But I'm thankful when I look back at the last 5, 6 years and all of the family memories that we've been able to make as a result of being willing to step out. I'm just very thankful.
That is fantastic. All right, I want to pivot just a little bit. A question that we've asked a couple of other guests that we've had that's always just a little bit interesting, a little behind the scenes stuff, inside baseball, if you will, is to ask about how did we get connected? Do you remember how that happened? Like how we ended up in each other's worlds?
I know how you guys got into my world. Um, it was from my the Silent Sales Machine podcast. You guys were interviewed it there a couple times, and I remember hearing you the first time and thinking like, they're a neat couple. And and then we were able to go to a business conference, and you guys were speaking there. And a game that Angela made up for the kids. We took our kids with us. We try to do life together as much as we can. We brought our kids along, and Angela made up this clothespins that said something like "You've been tagged, proven conference kids" or whatever. And our kids ran around and tagged different people. You know, like, oh, go try to tag him. You know, the leader, go try to tag him. I'll give you $1 if you tag him. And so I think Larry ended up getting tagged 3 times. And
At least.
Yeah, we got a collection of those pins. We took a picture on the hotel room bed. We were just like, look at this. How did this happen?
well, and I remember, I think Larry posted in the Facebook group about like, I got tagged 3 times, almost as a honor, you know, that, hey, I was the target. And I remember thinking like, that was a very neat response. And so I think you guys just kind of stuck out in my mind in a couple different ways.
Yeah.
That's fun. And just so you know, we actually, when we were speaking in one of the side rooms, we spoke while we were clipped.
Yeah.
While we were tagged.
Yes.
I did not know I had one on my back.
Our daughter did know that, and she let it go.
Exactly. She
Thank you.
she really didn't get much trouble, but
That was very creative. I
it
like that.
was.
Just thinking about where we're really kind of landing with this, which kind of makes sense. This is on brand with us, is just a married couple working together, getting the family involved, coordinating a lot of things in life. I know that you've gone through a lot of challenges. You can give specifics or speak in generalities if you'd like, but if you could just kind of talk about some of the challenges that you go through in this journey. And then more specifically, then I'd like to see how do you handle those? You as a couple, how do you communicate? Have you figured out any kind of secrets or any tips or whatever that you can share with anybody who's watching or listening?
So we went through an excellent coaching program recently,
Yeah.
hosted by the Pruitts. And one of the conversations that they had us have was talking about roles. And I think it is unique when you work together, because what you would consider the traditional family roles don't always apply in business. And so talking through that and working through, okay, so in our business, who is going to handle the bills, who is going to handle the prep, who is going to handle, all of these different aspects of the business, the customer service. And we both said neither of us. we're going to delegate that to one of the kids. But just kind of figuring out that business can look different than marriage, and being okay with I'm taking the lead in some places, and that's okay in our business. And that can actually, if we play to our strengths, that can make us stronger as a couple. It's not necessarily a competition or that we're not in the right roles in our marriage. So I think that was a challenging aspect of the business, and someplace we probably floundered for a little bit. And I definitely appreciate the conversations that we were able to have with the Pruitts and help kind of work through some of those thoughts.
Yeah. Along with that, some of the challenges is, like I try to stay in my lane. But then against that is, if she's working on something and needs help and I feel like, oh, I can learn that. Like I like to help her when I can. And she helps me out so much as well. Some of the challenges also is, like we definitely felt like we're not qualified to do so many things. And so I think it's been very helpful to just start where you're at, start small, get out of my comfort zone, go to local group meetings when I can, or get on a Zoom call when I can with different people. And, you just push a little bit outside your comfort zone, and that helps challenge you as a person. It helps grow your business. There's a good principle about what's in your hand. Just work with what you have in your hand. And so a lot of people in our community, outsource, get a prep center. And I'm like, well, let's just work with what we have. Let's grow as far as we can together. And then we'll look to outsource. I don't want me to go out and be hiring out before we use up our resources, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does. That's really wise. And so as you have been navigating this, and thank you for your kind words, but you guys were excellent students, I'll just say that. So as you've been navigating this, how have you kept your priorities straight? Obviously, you've prioritized family and your marriage. And yet you're doing it while you're doing so many other things, like working a day job and running a business at the same time. What do you do that helps you prioritize your marriage?
I think being intentional about the time we have. So we only have a few hours together in the evenings right now, and trying to be intentional about, okay, tonight the kids are going to go to bed a little bit early so that we can actually have a conversation that's more than a sentence between interruptions, And
I'm going to insert real quick here just a little bit. I found that to be my biggest challenge around parenting is trying to have a complete conversation. We felt like we never got one. So
Yes.
I'm with you there. I'm with you 100%.
Yes. And there's times the kids are like, we didn't do anything wrong. Why do we have to go to bed early? and just stressing to them, like, this mommy and daddy's relationship is so important, and we need to be able to communicate with one another. And that's, it may not be culturally correct to say so, but we'll tell our kids, like, our relationship is the most important relationship in our family. And if our marriage is healthy, then that makes everything else better. And so I think the kids are coming around to, it's okay if we have to go to bed a little bit early. But then also on the weekends, Kyle's off work right now, Friday, Saturday, Sundays. And so a lot of times we will just put on the calendar a special family event. And it might be an outing. It might just be a day at home where we do something fun. It doesn't have to necessarily be something expensive, but just to let the kids know that we're not so focused on growing the business that we're missing these days of life where we are right now. and that they're important to us too. So I think we've been able to build a lot of really special memories by just putting it on the calendar. And that's not always easy because then other stuff will creep in and, oh, well, maybe we should not do that special day this month. But kind of guarding that time and seeing it as important. It is an important meeting when our family is together and we're making good memories. So.
Yeah, I echo that. I think getting the big rocks in the bucket before you get the little pebbles in there. That's how you get it all to fit. And there's a lot of things in our life that we just, we're not going to be the fastest business to grow. We haven't been, but we want to be the one that we would like to be the one that lasts. And there are some days, like she said, we bought a year membership to the Creation Museum and to the Ark, which are within a 2-hour drive. And so we've tried to make it a goal. Once a month, we're just going to block out a day and we're going to go. And since we've got a membership, if we show up there and just play at the park there and we don't really see anything, as far as the exhibits, like that's a success. That's a win.
Yeah.
And so just blocking out time for the things that really matter is very helpful. I heard somebody recently said, plan your night before, plan the next day, the night before. And I think that's very helpful as well. Just kind of knowing what you're going to do and how long you're going to block out the time. And if you don't get it all done, I'll do it again next time. So.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that there is more and more information coming out that what you're saying is exactly true, is that it's actually healthier for the kids whenever the world doesn't revolve around them, and they see that mom and dad's relationship is super important. And just so you know, there's a day coming where you're going to be in our shoes where most of your kids have moved out. and and so we're right on the verge of empty nesting, and we're actually seeing that, or we're hearing at least, that a lot of couples struggle during that time period of their life because they look at each other and they say, "Who are you? I haven't really been connecting with you as a husband and wife for however many years they've had kids in the home." And we've just decided exactly like what you're saying, is that we weren't going to let that happen, and it hasn't happened to us. It feels weird, don't get me wrong, to not have a lot of activities with the kids going on and such, but it's good. And definitely from people that we look up to that are maybe 10, 20 years older than us, and they're saying, you're going to really like empty nesting. So and so we're believing that. But
Yeah.
one question that I would like I'd really be curious your answer to this. So you're about 6 years, sounds like, into your entrepreneurial journey. And so I'm kind of wondering if you can reflect back and say, what's something that I wish I would have known back then that I know now? And how would you have handled maybe starting the business or running the business maybe differently?
I think one of the big things for me was being okay with slow growth. So often when you first start a business, you're very passionate, very excited about it, and you're really hoping that things are just going to take off really fast.
Sure.
And so when you're watching your sales and you're seeing improvement every month, you're seeing improvement, but it's slow. It can be easy to kind of compare yourself to other people's journeys and to feel, well, maybe we're not doing it right, or not, I don't know, not putting in enough effort or whatever. And so to be okay, you always hear, don't compare your story with someone else's, but to be okay with slow and steady, that's going to be all right, because it will eventually get you to your goal as long as you're making forward progress. So.
Probably one thing I would say is if you want to go far, take a team with you. If you want to go fast, go alone. And that's so counter my personality, I guess, is I like to be a loner, and I just want to go out and run as fast as I can towards a goal. And it's the right thing is to take a team with you. And that's something I'm learning to do, is to don't step on people on your way to success. Like, take them with you. And not that I've ever been, necessarily like the cutthroat person, but I think it's very important to involve other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, well, we're probably kind of getting to the point where we need to kind of wind down. And we have actually covered a lot of topics today. We've talked about homeschooling, we've talked about home life, we've talked about entrepreneurship and working a job, and lots of different things. Getting the kids involved, how to keep your marriage priority, all those types of things. So, if you were to recommend this episode to somebody else, what would you tell them about why they should listen in or watch it?
Because the Pruitts are on it, of course.
Good answer.
I don't know. I think for me, I would say when I'm 70, or when somebody's 70 years old, and they want to look back, they want to make sure that they made the smart decisions along the way, the decisions they're proud of. And I'm hoping that that would be an inspiration in our story to other people. Is we didn't go the fastest. We weren't the firework, that zoomed up in the air and exploded and were super pretty and all that. But we're trying to make decisions, and hopefully they can hear that in this episode, is that we're trying to make decisions that when we're an old couple, and hopefully I'm the guy that's still holding her hand and opening the door for her. But we look back on our life and we're very thankful that we made the decisions that we made, whether or not the culture around us agreed with them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's perfect. I love that.
That is great. So I've got a feeling that after people are watching and listening to this, they're going to say, like, I think Kyle and Angela are pretty cool, and we really love to connect with them. So if somebody was wanting to get in contact with you, what would be the best way to do that?
You can find us right now on Facebook, Kyle, the letter N, Angela, Bigelow. And you can reach out to us there, or you can always find us through the Pruitts as well.
Absolutely. Oh, fantastic. Well, I want to ask one more question before we close up, and that is, we do our best to prepare for these episodes, and we want to make sure that we're doing things well there. But it's possible that we skipped something that you kind of think, this is kind of important. We should really cover this topic too. Is there anything we didn't ask you about that you think is important enough that should be mentioned on this episode?
If I could dive off the deep end in a safe way, I would say just, I want to stress it's very important in business, if you're doing business as a couple, to make your spouse a priority and make decisions together. Mm-hmm. And I would say one thing that we didn't mention in the podcast is we started gardening a non-traditional way that we've been doing it 3 years now, and we're super excited about it and have seen very good results. And that's something we're passionate about together. And so I brought my sign. I'll just show you real quick.
Oh, I love that. Together is my favorite place to be, for those who are listening.
Together is my favorite place to be. And so I think it's very important as a couple to come to agreements together, do things together, make decisions together, win together, and push forward together and enjoy life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for so long in the early days of our marriage, we were striving to pay off our home. And that was like our biggest goal. And it seemed like a monumental task. Like we were never going to get there. And when we did write that check and pay off our home, I feel like we floundered in our marriage for a little bit because we had been working so hard on this one dream together. And when we accomplished it, then it was like, okay, now what? And so I think it's really important as a couple to continue to dream together. And you may not, you might dream about, we're going to go on a vacation to California. You may or may not ever do that. But if you're dreaming together and finding enjoyment in life, learning new things together, that can be a good source of bonding in your marriage.
Mm-hmm. Oh, those are great words. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
That's a great way to kind of summarize all of this here. So, Kyle and Angela, thank you so much for being on with us. We've really enjoyed this, and I really think that you brought a tremendous amount of value. So thanks for being on with us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
We appreciate you both.
Yes.
Oh, we appreciate you as well. So, and we appreciate everybody who tuned in to listen to this or to watch it. And we just hope that you take the information that you learned here and go build your dream business.
Side by side. See you, everyone.